but the first keynote speaker will be a very strong voice globally, a voice which we have been waiting for, I think. Personally, I'm very proud that a former Minister of Denmark in several governments became EU Commissioner for Competition and really has taken the political discussions from words to action. I will just address that a number of bigger companies in the world have faced some tough questions from Starbucks, Gazprom, Facebook and Google. So we here have a voice which are not only talking but also have made an action and an impact. So I would like you to heartily welcome Margrethe Vestager.
Since I would seriously fear to tumble down the podium, I'll try to stay on ground. I hope that works for you in the back as well. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you for the work that you do here, and also for the work by Cumulus. I don't think the sound manager is happy. You know you cannot make everyone happy, but at least the sound manager you should try. Thank you. These are indeed difficult times. Yesterday in Kabul, a week ago in Manchester, we saw how very few people can destroy lives in the most violent way. In Manchester, you saw people determined to take out children in their most enjoyable moments. And in the thinking of the families and the victims, and in the people, both in Kabul and in Manchester, seeing things that no one should see, I think it is important to be determined in also the civil answer to destruction. And I think the obvious civil answer to destruction is to build. Not only physically, but also mentally, and in connecting to make our societies stronger. And I think this is an important part of your mission. Just being here, just sharing the atmosphere of creativity, of non-uniformity. If you only knew how many audiences of suits I talk to. Thank you for not being like that. It is truly needed because it gives us another starting point to show what society and rebuilding and redoing is really about. Thank you. There is opening an exhibition here to mark this 50th anniversary. The school have asked people from all over the globe, from all over life, to pick out design that touch exactly daily lives. And it was a great honor for me and a surprise to be asked to be one of those guest curators. So I decided to pick something which is indeed an everyday item in my life. And not only close to heart, but very close to hand. It's a tool, it's a Danish kitchen tool. It's called a farsrør. Unfortunately, there is no appropriate English word. It's a quite long wooden handle and a strangely shaped metal head. That's it. No electronics, no connected apps. It will not talk to you or follow you around or suggest things you would also like. But it is exactly what you need to mix good things that goes into meatballs. Or if you like me, use it like me, you can make wonderful rye bread. It's a traditional tool. It's not just invented. But for me, it represents something very important about design. And the important thing here is that it puts people first. It's an enabler for me as a human being. Because if you were in a Danish household, and I think if you knocked on the door here in Kolding, you would actually find quite a number. Well, if they have one of those, it's not because that anyone told them to. It's not because it's a smart accessory to the way they live. It's because it works for them as people in everyday life. And in that sense, I think that every sector of society has a lot to learn from design, from the very basic value of putting people first. Because politics and democracy, just as design, has the core value of putting people first. It's about people. And I think that is one of our major democratic challenges, maybe the biggest one, to put people first and to build trust in doing that. That we can learn from people in the past to build for the future those of us who are here right now. I know a lot of different people who have a lot of different political voices. But when you boil it down to the basics, well, they just want their life to make sense. They want to take care of their families, and they don't want to worry about politics all the time. So if we expect or see that our politics and our political systems suddenly becomes unsettled or challenged, well, then we have to rethink and then redo politics in order to do the basic mission, putting people first. Because it is striking. Maybe in Denmark in particular, but also in the Western world, we have never been richer. Even despite a financial crisis and sovereign debt crisis, we have still increased our prosperity. But obviously, wealth doesn't give people a sense of worthiness or purpose, and sense of being valued for what they are and what they can contribute with to their communities. And for many people today, it doesn't seem to be the case that they are being seen for what they are and what they can contribute with. I fear that a number of people see their societies turning into a business and that they were fired. And that is very sad, because a society should be anything but a business. Obviously, the market should play a role for a number of very good reasons, but the story of the market and the rules of the economy does not explain a society, because here we always belong. And therefore, obviously, our response has to be, let's do something about it. Not just to resign, sigh and say, well, that's the laws of the market, good things will happen later on if you just pay or take the sacrifice. Because if we do not design our societies so that they are built for everyone to participate, we will lose out. The good news, though, is that things are already changing. Right here in the design community and throughout society, you find people who are willing to do things differently and to engage with others in order to do that. To defend democracy, but also to renew it. And of course, terror is the extreme. But you see threats that are undermining democracy all over the world. How women are being looked at. How rape are being approved of. How judges are being threatened. How independence in our institutions are being undermined. So we have indeed our work cut out for us. But what you see, the presidential election in France, the election results in the Netherlands, then you see that the urge to renew is much stronger than hate. You see that people prefer real solutions, things that work, and not just the talking that keeps us apart. It shows that you can win elections on a platform of having a local, national, and European democracy and making it work. Since the world is changing, that of course gives us something to do. We can see that free trade, open markets has created jobs, but it has also made other jobs disappear. So we can see new technologies that has put information from all over the world in our hand in the smartphone, but the other side of the coin is that it has turned personal data and our personal lives into a commodity that can be bought and sold. I think we should have a very strong ambition not to stop changes, but to manage and to shape the changes that are happening around us. And we can do that by putting people first. Taking trade. In Europe alone, trade has made it much easier for people to buy the things that they need at prices they can afford. It's an obvious benefit, but we don't think much about it because it comes so natural. That prices has come down for things that we use in everyday life. 30 million jobs in Europe alone rely on trade. So why should we turn our back on that? Maybe the question is more precisely put in how can we make people not only comfortable, but also in charge of these processes that are changing our lives, our landscapes, our working life. Because the worker who feels discarded by a world that's not interested anymore, she of course needs to be reached out to in order to have a fair chance of having a second go in her society as a member of society. And in that work to make the economy work for everyone, I also have my sort of small field of work cut up for me. Because making the economy work for everyone, that is also about fair competition. And when we look at that, it's both about data and technology. It's about how you behave in the markets, and it's about how you contribute to your society. In the last 2 decades, technology has transformed our lives completely. Smartphones are now more powerful, one smartphone more powerful than all the computers it took to put a man on the moon. Which is why it is quite impressive that we do not make more out of it. But technology moves so fast that people have a great risk of being left behind. And it's not just because that they find it difficult to manage, just physically to deal with it. Well, maybe the basic thing is that we lose track of ourselves because we lose choices. Choices that we ourselves like to draw the line between what is public and what is private, what is for all of us and what is just for ourselves. This is a fundamental right, and already now, 4/5 of Europeans find that they are not at all in control of their own data, which makes it an obvious design task to stop that, to make sure that we can use data protection by design as the starting principle for all the good things that technology can do for us. It is part of the latest legislation that the European Parliament and the Council has passed, which will come into effect the 1st of January next year. There's an obvious task to make this happen, to design also the digitalization of our world to respect that we as humans and individuals have things to do that are private and of no one else's concern. To make that possible, then of course businesses have to obey the law. And in my daily work, that is basically what I try to do. Europe is definitely open for business, but we're not open for tax evasion. And we're not open for misuse of a dominant position. everyone, big ones, small ones, even the very small ones and the major ones, are more than welcome if they play by the European rulebook. And of course you know that the backbone of the European economy, that's small and medium-sized businesses. Those are the ones that pay their taxes, create the jobs, take upon them to teach young people how to do the trade. To give one example, it is a good thing, of course, to recognize a pharma, a drug-producing company, when they produce drugs that enable us to live longer, to stay healthier. But if we see one of those companies all of a sudden raising the prices of a cancer drug, a life-important cancer drug, by several 100%, well, then obviously we have a case to look at, because that is not the way to behave in the marketplace. Because literally, this is exploiting patients who have a vital interest of the prices here. And we can also, at least to some degree, step in when selected companies get advantages in the tax system that are only for them. Because competition is not just about what other companies do in the marketplace, it's also how the state steps in. If you want fair competition, well, the state should also use taxpayers' money in fair ways. And this is why we also step in if we see that companies get selective advantages that are not for everyone. This is the case of this Apple case in Ireland, the Starbucks case in the Netherlands, the Fiat case in Luxembourg, the built-in scheme to promote multinational tax savings in Belgium. And in all these cases, now the companies are in the process of paying the taxes that they didn't pay. And I think that is what we need to say to all the people who during the last 10 years saw that public salaries were cut. In some European member states, 10–15% wage cut. Retirement age going up, pensions going down, VAT going up. They, of course, expect, which is completely 100% legitimate, that also every company contribute as they should. This is a part of the story, that working together in our local, national and European democracy, we can make change happen. But to a very large degree, we rely on some who will help us redesign the very fundamentals of democracy. Because one of the things that I see when I see that we have this challenge of putting people first and creating trust is that we don't talk anymore. See, a lot of people, they just talk, and the one who is supposed to listen, they're just preparing what they want to say themselves. You never really listen in order for yourself to change. And I think the basic conclusion for me is, in doing my job, enforcing competition rules, making fair competition a reality in Europe. What we need is the help to redesign some of the fundamentals, actually to allow our democracy to develop at its full, for people to experience that they can participate, that the society is not a business, and they have not been fired, but they are counted in. And the good things are that the examples are plentiful. Not only what you do here. Every year the European Commission runs a social innovation competition. And when you look at the winners, then you see just a glimpse of the potential. Because what they do is that they discuss, they find direction, they redesign, and they take action. That would be the social travel platform for older people in Ireland, which helps them to overcome loneliness. Or a car-sharing platform for disabled people in France to step in where public transportation doesn't do the job. Or a German project that gives refugees both skills and involvement in the community by working together to design and build furniture. I find that inspiring. And one of the most inspiring sentences, and I would so much have liked to invent it myself, was in one of the people working in projects like this. And what she says was, "We are the ones we've been waiting for." And on that note, thank you for your patience.